We have new details about this stupid frickin' temporary port situation the president announced last week in his State of the Union. Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen. So these are the new details from the Department of Defense. Let me just read to you what we have learned. So this is going to, the construction of this temporary pier is going to require over 1,000 U.S. military personnel. It will take about 60 days to plan and execute. So we're talking about 2 months before this is even up and running. U.S. Army 7th Transportation Brigade Expeditionary from Virginia is tasked with this mission, maintains the ability to provide unique capabilities from offshore without a U.S. military presence within Gaza. The U.S. Navy will not play a role because it doesn't require combat capability. Working with military sea lift, command, and logistics support vessels involved, multiple ships from across the world will come together. JLAS, Joint Logistics Over the Shore Operation, confirmed, employed last year in Australia. Aid will be loaded from Cyprus, taken to the floating pier, barged to a causeway, brought ashore by quote-unquote partners, don't know who that is, into Gaza, working with like-minded countries and partners who will provide security and assistance on the ground. Again, still very amorphous and undefined. Sending out prepared to deploy orders in process, provide up to 2 million meals per day under CENTCOM command. I mean, listen, there's so much to say about this. Let's go ahead and put the visual up on the screen too so you guys can see. It's sort of like, it's difficult to talk about this in a way without first establishing that this is just a PR move to try to make the give the Biden administration some sort of message they can take to the base to try to claim that they actually care about the starvation and suffering of the Palestinian population. So that's number one to keep in mind with all of this. Number two, even if you take this seriously as an idea, it's got a whole lot of problems. The whole issue right now isn't that there aren't roads into Gaza and plenty of aid available to go into Gaza. The issue is Israel blocking that aid going through. Establishing a temporary pier doesn't change any of those dynamics. The only two things that change those dynamics are, number one, pressuring and forcing Israel to allow that aid in, and number two, a permanent and lasting ceasefire. Obviously, a temporary pier does not accomplish either of those things, Saagar.
Yeah, I mean, this entire idea is totally ridiculous. What it also, the DOD just casually confirming. By the way, when they say up to 1,000 troops, that means 5,000, just so everybody who speaks Pentagon.
And I assume when they say 60 days, that probably means like...
that means 300 days.
Right.
And whenever they, I love how over 1,000. What does that mean? That could mean 100,000. Right. It doesn't mean anything.
Greater than, it's not going to be less than 1,000.
Having covered the Pentagon and watching the way that they do the accounting tricks in Syria, it will all be fake. If it's over 179 days and they have to acknowledge it, which means every 179th day they'll just rotate everybody in and out. All of the details here demonstrate and confirm all of our worst suspicions, which are Israelis inspecting U.S. military cargo, thousands and thousands of American soldiers who are involved in this mission, probably tens of billions of dollars that this will require, putting American soldiers in harm's way. I mean, what? Are we all going to just trust the accuracy of the Israelis whenever it comes to our guys who are there? I mean, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't put them in a combat zone. And yet, that is the preferred solution of this entire thing. Plus, talking about like a D-Day level, mission when we have perfectly 10 good entryways that are right there. It'd be a lot cheaper. The aid is waiting. We can just send it in there. And yet that's not the option that we're pursuing.
And people are starving. Children are starving today.
It's nuts.
Right now, they are starving. And by the way, those warnings have been coming for months now. It's been clear since the beginning of Israel's assault on Gaza that we would head in this direction when they announced a complete siege. So all of this was predictable, and this is clearly no solution. The press corps picking up on some of exactly the questions that you are raising, Saagar, and pressing the Pentagon on a number of key issues. One of them being, I mean, we just watched the Flower Massacre where hungry Gazans were trying to get food off of an aid truck. The Israeli military fires on them, and over 100 are massacred in this horrific incident. That's not the only time either, far from it, that hungry Palestinians have been fired on by the Israeli military while they are trying to seek aid. So one of the questions that was asked of the Pentagon was, hey, are you going to make sure that Israel isn't firing on people who are trying to obtain, starving Palestinians who are trying to obtain this aid? Let's take a listen to that response.
Have you received assurances from the Israelis that they will not fire upon Palestinians as they seek to retrieve the aid?
Look, our focus is on delivering the aid. I'm not going to speak for the Israelis. Obviously, the focus is to make sure that we're going to get the aid. Thank you.
So, no, we have no assurances that the Israeli military isn't going to fire on the starving civilians who are trying to obtain this temporary port-delivered aid. There's another question, though, which is, hey, are our soldiers going to be safe, right, the 1,000 plus who are involved in constructing this? Or are you afraid that Hamas could fire on this temporary pier? No assurances there either. Let's take a listen to that.
Do you anticipate that Hamas will try to fire on the operation, on the causeway?
Look, I mean, that's certainly a risk. Again, but if if Hamas truly does care about the Palestinian people, then again, one would hope that this international mission to deliver aid to people who need it would be able to happen unhindered.
That's certainly
open a prayer.
A risk.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason they're doing this pier is so that they don't technically have quote unquote boots on the ground. But this is an extraordinary admission that, of course, our service members are being put once again in harm's way. Why? Because we don't want to pressure the Israelis to allow in the trucks that are already massed at the border, and we don't want to pressure the Israelis to have an actual ceasefire so that Palestinians are able to live. I mean, that is the height of irresponsibility and insanity, and this is just an utter boondoggle.
The whole thing is completely nuts. We even saw more recent evidence of this. Let's put this up there on the screen. Tragic news, but actually exactly why dropping aid from the air is pretty inefficient, not all that reliable. At least 5 people were actually killed after airdrop aid fell on them in Gaza because their parachutes didn't deploy. I mean, this it's inaccurate. It's not enough food in the first place. There's plenty of food waiting on the other side of the border that doesn't take 60 to 90 days to build, that doesn't take thousands of American service members being put in harm's way. And just take a look here of the video of what this looks like. I mean, that's, the American plane that's there, the aid, I believe with the cooperation of the Royal Jordanian Air Force, that's falling down everywhere around them in Gaza. You can actually see it is dropping, quite quickly, but it just highlights the ridiculousness of the whole situation. There's all this aid that's waiting on the other side of the border. All you have to do is just say, hey, let it in, or we're not going to allow you to continue to prosecute this war this way. Just let's have a ceasefire. Let's allow some of this to come in. And instead, we're going to build a port on the other side. Hamas may or may not fire on it. Also, who wants to bet? This is the greatest Israeli plan ever. All it's going to take is one idiot in Gaza to fire a rocket, and now we're in the damn war.
Yeah.
And that's what they want. That's what they've been begging for from day one. They want us to take security control, to pay all their bills like we always do. And, you don't hear any, you hear silence from Congress. How can they allow something like this to happen?
Yeah.
In terms of their overview, they should defund this project. They should withhold funding or something to keep our people safe and not have to go into this situation. The whole thing is crazy.
It's completely insane. Yeah. I mean, I really am genuinely losing my mind over the insanity of it, because it's long, it's expensive, and it doesn't solve any of the existing problems when there is a very obvious glaring solution staring right in the face, which is to allow in the aid that is right there and to have a ceasefire. Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.